أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأذن في الناس بالحج يأتوك رجالا وعلى كل ضامر يأتينا من كل فج عميق صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Annual workshop that we do just before the Hajj season or the rituals of Hajj begin. For the past couple of years, unfortunately, people have not had the opportunity to go to Hajj. But this year, alhamdulillah, about 1 million people from around the world will be performing this sacred ibadat. With that said, I'm sure many of our community members will also be traveling this year to perform this sacred ibadat and take part in the rituals associated with the father of monotheism, Hazrat Ibrahim, Hazrat Ismail, and his family. Of course, my name is Syed Rizwan Rizvi. Just a little background that I started going to Hajj from 2010. And alhamdulillah, I was blessed to do this ibadat 5 years in a row. Then hiatus of a couple of years, and then we began again and went 2 more consecutive years. And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and ever since, haven't had the opportunity. So about, I say, 7 Hajj are under my belt so far, and hopefully looking forward for many more. Prior to that, I've had the opportunity to perform 2 Umrahs, back in 1999 and in the year 2000. And then, of course, when I began taking going as a, religious guide to the Hajj group, I was also blessed with the company of my late father, Maulana, who had performed about 20 Hajj in his lifetime. So with that experience, I started, guiding, and I started taking these groups for Hajj. With that said, inshallah, we'll dive right into. I recited this ayat, which is a very commonly known ayat in the chapter Surah Hajj. So there's an entire chapter in Quran called Surah Al-Hajj, chapter number 22, ayat number 27, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "And proclaim the Hajj to all the people. They will come to you on foot and on lean camels, coming from distant places." And of course, the chapter Hajj goes into some of the ahkam. But of course, in order for us to derive and deduce and deduct these ahkam, it's one of the most difficult chapters in the book of fiqh. So if you were to go up and down from in the book of Islamic law, it begins with the concept of taqleed, then taqleed ijtihad, and then you move on to taharat, then najasat, you go to wudu, ghusl, salat, saum, and so on and so forth. One of the topics that come about is Hajj. In fact, it is so extensive that ulama have omitted this chapter from the book of Tawzi'ul Masail, book of law, and dedicated an entire book for it because of the details and the depths of the ahkam that are associated with it, that it could not be fit into this Tawzi'ul Masail, which would become then a very large book. Of course, there are many aspects of Hajj which can only be understood only if you travel and you go out there in the field. A lot of time we have studied, as students of Hawza, we studied this as a subject. So I'd already studied Hajj and the topic of Hajj in my fiqh class. But when I went to Hajj myself for the first time, it's a total new world. When you experience things as opposed to practically or theoretically you've read it, but now you practically perform it, sometimes it seems like a very difficult thing. One of the Maraji actually of the past, he never got the opportunity to do Hajj. I believe it was Ayatollah Marashi Najafi. He never had the means to go to Hajj. And so he said, I was always hesitant and reluctant in giving fatwa regarding Hajj, because I personally myself have not performed it. So I don't really know what's out there. Yes, you've read about it in the books of the previous ulama, but things change. The size of haram changes, for example. How and where you can perform the tawaf, for example, changes. All of these other changes regarding Arafat and Muzdalifah and Mina and all those things, shaitan now getting bigger and bigger, buzurg and buzurg, right? It used to be small, shaitan is now getting big. So he says it was very difficult to give fatwa as to what is right and what is not without having done this in person. So that's why ulama are sometimes reluctant in it. I won't take too much of your time. I plan on doing this. We started about 5-6 minutes late. I'll dive right into it. Now, many people will not be going to Hajj this year. May Allah give them the opportunity to perform it in the years to come. But when the Hajj season is over, do make an effort to go ahead and perform Umrah, which is a minor Hajj, right? Minus all the ahkam of manasik, which means Arafat, Mina, Muzdalifah, Rami, Jamarat, minus all of that, you get what you call Umrah. So it's important, and we will read in the tradition. So this year, because many will not be traveling, so what we'll do is we'll focus a little bit initially on Umrah Mufrada, which you can go right after the Hajj season is over, from the month of Muharram or Safar or Rabiul Awwal. In fact, Umrah is mustahab to be performed every month. If you have the means to perform Umrah, you should go to Umrah every month. But it's highly recommended to go to Umrah in the month of Rajab. Umrah Rajabiyya is the most important ones and mustahab. And then there's a mas'ala that can you do more than one Umrah in a month? 30 days in same month, it's not permissible to do 2 Umrahs for yourself. But you can do one for yourself and you can do one for someone else, or you can do for other people multiple times. But if you go towards the end of a month, let's say you leave at 26th or 27th of Rajab, and you go there for 10 days, and you also get to be there in the month of Shaban, you can do one Umrah for Rajab and you can do one Umrah for Shaban, because the month changed, even though there aren't 30 days in between. Inshallah, we'll get into that. So without further ado, we have Umrah Mufrada, today's agenda, and we have Hajj Tamattu. The reason I didn't go into the other sections of Hajj, there are 3 types of Hajj. Hajj Ifrad, Hajj Qiran, and Hajj Tamattu. Hajj Ifrad and Hajj Qiran does not really affect us or is relevant for us. It's usually for those people who live within the 16 farsakh radius, and therefore we are coming from outside. It does not reflect on us. But first and foremost, Umrah Mufrada. As I said, it's mustahab to perform Umrah as often as possible. But in the month of Rajab is highly recommended. And then Hajj Tamattu, of course, is not mustahab, it's wajib. If you have the means, it's an obligatory action at least once in a person's lifetime. So, as far as Umrah Mufrada is concerned, these are the 7 things that you are responsible for. Bear in mind, there are religious implications of not performing certain actions properly, which could be impacting even when you come back. I'll get into that. For example, there are 7 parts of Umrah Mufrada. What are these 7? You can count them on your fingers. Wearing the ihram, performing the tawaf, 2 rakat prayer of tawaf, sa'i between Safa and Marwa, doing taksir, clipping the hair or nails, doing tawaf al-nisa, and then 2 rakat tawaf, salat of tawaf al-nisa. These are total 7 actions that you perform in Umrah Mufrada. How long does it take? 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours maximum. That's how long it will take for you, depending on how heavy it is, the crowd is. It'll take you maybe 2.5 hours, 3 hours to do the entire Umrah Mufrada. So it doesn't take that great deal of long time. With that said, wearing the ihram from the miqat is a wajib, and you can't omit that. Now there are two means of, or two airports that usually people fly into Saudi Arabia. Either you fly into Medina or you fly into Jeddah. If you fly into Medina and you do the ziyarat of Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt in Baqi, and then you move towards Mecca, then your miqat will be Masjid-e-Shajara, which is of course in the vicinity of Madinatul Munawwara. But if you fly into Jeddah, your miqat will be Juhfa, about 180 kilometers away from Jeddah airport. But if you have very little time, a lot of time people, they want to perform Umrah, because as I said, you can do it in 2 or 3 hours. So you have a layover in Jeddah for about 20 hours, 18 hours, 15 hours. Well, there are flights, that's how they go, and they're designed. And so, well, I want to get out and I want to go ahead and perform Umrah Mufrada and then catch the flight back. You can do that. People do that. And if you have an opportunity, if you're a frequent flyer and you go that route, go ahead and do that. What you do is that you can save the trip from going to Juhfa, because if you go 180 kilometers, it's going to take you about 2 hours. And then you drive back to Mecca, 150 kilometers, it's going to take you another 2 hours. So there goes 4 hours just traveling to going to miqat. What you can do in that scenario, make the nadhr, a vow that I will wear the ihram of Umrah from Jeddah. Fulfilling the nadhr becomes obligatory. When you arrive in Jeddah, you put on the ihram with the niyat of Umrah, you don't have to go to Juhfa. So that saves you a couple of hours going to Juhfa and coming back. So a lot of people miss out on this. They say, oh, traveling to miqat and all that. This way you can save time. So, but going to miqat is the actual thing to do. That's a wajib, but there's this loophole around it. Tawaf is accumulating around the Kaaba, 7 rounds, starting from Hajar Aswad, ending at Hajar Aswad. And then 2 rakat salat behind Maqam Ibrahim. I'll show you the picture of it as well later on. You'll see that is to be performed right after that. And we'll get into the kayfiyat of performing that. Sa'i is walking between the Mount Safa and Marwa. Inna Safa wal Marwata min sha'air Allah. As the ayat of Quran says, Safa and Marwa are the signs and the symbols of God. And this is the same place between which Hazrat Hajar, wife of Ibrahim ﷺ, ran between the 2 mountains looking for water for an infant, Hazrat Ismail. And as she would be running, it was a hot day with sun out, she would see the Mount Safa and she would see mirage. And she'll think that she thought that it was water, so she ran into that direction. She saw mirage on the other side, she ran into that direction. So that kept her moving back and forth. And eventually when she returned without any luck, she saw that water emerge from the feet of Hazrat Ismail, Zamzam, which is still flowing. Once you're done with Safa and Marwa, so you start from Safa, you go to Marwa, that's 1. You go from Marwa, come back to Safa, that's 2. Safa to Marwa 3, Marwa to Safa 4, Safa to Marwa 5, Marwa to Safa 6, and Safa to Marwa 7th, and you're done. That's the 7th. So it's not a round between the 2, rather just one way, right? Stop. So that's 7. After those 7 are done, what do? You go ahead and do what is called Taksir. Taksir or halq. If you want to do halq, you can shave your head off completely. Or Taksir would be just to trim some hair. If you don't have any hair on your head, you can trim some hair of your beard, for example. And if you don't have any hair anywhere, then clip your nails would be sufficient. Number 6 is Tawafun Nisa. Some people say, well, Tawafun Nisa sounds like something that the women should be doing, right? No, it's an obligation which is on everyone who goes for Tawaf, who goes for Umrah, regardless of your gender. It's an obligatory action which is named after Nisa, women, but does not mean that it is only associated with women. Come in, stop, you're bothering. Come here, go sit with Ali. Go sit with Ali. Go sit with Ali. All right. So Tawaf an-Nisa is same thing. You're going to circumambulate around the Kaaba, 7 rounds. And after those 7 rounds, you're going to do 2 rakat salat behind Maqam Ibrahim. That's your Umrah Mufrada. Simple enough, right? Nothing too fancy in it. Inshallah, we'll because this will be repeated in Umrah Tamattu. So that's why I'm not going in the details of each one of these actions. This will all be repeated when we perform Umrah Tamattu. All right. So Hajj is what we are, inshallah, will be focusing. It is called Hajjatul Islam. When you do Hajj for the first time, your niyat is to do what's called Hajjatul Islam. So every time you do an act, you run the intention through your tongue or in your head by saying, I perform the tawaf around the Kaaba for Umrah Tamattu, for Hajjatul Islam, wajib qurbatan ilallah. Now you don't have to say it, but you need to make sure that you pronounce it or say it or run it in your head with that intention. You keep that intention. We said Umrah Tamattu in the months of Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, and Dhul Hijjah, the first 9 days. If you can't make it till first 9 days, then you can't do Umrah Tamattu. That's the last possible moment for you to do Umrah. Now, you'll see that there are only 5 things in it. The last 2 are missing. Why they're missing? They go over as part of Hajj Tamattu. Down on the bottom, you have number 13, which is Tawafun Nisa. So it's skipped from here, and it goes over there. So basically, Hajjatul Islam comprised of 2 portions. First portion is called Umrah Tamattu. Second portion is called Hajj Tamattu. You wear ihram for both of them separately. There's an ihram for Umrah Tamattu. You come out of that ihram, and then you wear separate ihram, or the same one, but you wear it at another time for Hajj Tamattu with the niyat of Hajj Tamattu. So as I said, in the months of Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, and Dhul Hijjah, up until the 9th, you can do Umrah Tamattu. And then Hajj Tamattu can only be done, of course, from 9th Zilhijj to the 12th of Zilhijj, or until the end of the month of Zilhijj. But preferably should be done and completed by 12th. Some of the actions can actually be delayed until the end of the month of Zilhijjah. We'll get into those. So just a quick overview. Actually, this will come up later on, so I'll skip it right here. Hajj Tamattu. Look at ayat number 97 from Surah Al Imran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to this. وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. So, for the sake of Allah, from the very beginning, it's talking about for the sake of Allah. Lillahi. Not for لِلرَّجَالِ وَلِلنِّسَاءِ وَلِلْأَخَوَانِ, or for your brothers, for your sisters, for your mother, for your father, for this, for that. No, وَلِلَّهِ. And it is a duty of mankind toward Allah to make pilgrimage to the house, but with a condition. Because Hajj is not an ibadat which can be done by anyone and everyone. While Salat is obligatory on everyone, and there's no means of skipping and omitting Salat, there's no way of skipping and omitting this prayer, even if you are, bedridden. If you can't move, still you have to pray. There's no leniency when it comes to Salat. You still got to pray. But Hajj is, yes, it requires certain, istata'at. And that istata'at requires your ability, meaning either financially or physically. But for, of course, a person who's never financially can afford it, it's not obligatory upon them. Person who's not physically fit, it's not obligatory upon them. But if you're not physically fit to perform, because it's a physical ibadat, you can, in your lifetime, hire someone as na'ib on your behalf to go ahead and perform Hajj. You give them the money, they go ahead and do it on your behalf, and your Hajj counts that way. This is only for this ibadat. You can't hire someone to do Salat on your behalf while you're alive. You can't hire someone to fast on your behalf while you're alive. You can't hire anyone to do anything else on your behalf while you're alive. Yes, those things can be made up on your behalf after you leave this world. So that's why the Salat, missed Qadha Salat, and the Sawm of a father on the elder son is obligatory. If he doesn't do it, someone else should go ahead and do it. But Hajj is the only ibadat that you can hire someone in your lifetime to go ahead and do on your behalf. I'll run through this quickly. If there are any questions, inshallah, we'll get to that. So Hajj becomes wajib when the following conditions have been realized or have been met. Number 1, bulugh. Now I've seen in many years of Hajj that I've gone, younger kids performing Hajj. Is it Hajjatul Islam for them? No. They can only do Hajjatul Islam, the obligatory Hajj, when they are baligh. So you might want to bring your kids when they're not baligh yet. That's up to you. But Hajj does not become obligatory upon them until they have reached the age of bulugh. Aqil, becoming sane, which are preconditions for all the fru'udeen. And on account of this journey to Makkah, he should not forsake another wajib. So, Hajj should only be done when it's not compromising any other wajib, or when it's not making you commit any haram. For example, I can go to Hajj if I steal the bank, if I rob the bank, if I steal something from an individual. If I go out and do this haram, then I can go to Hajj. No, it should not. Because Hajj is an ibadat which costs money. Salat is not an ibadat which costs money. Hajj is an ibadat which costs money. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do something haram to go to Hajj. No. Or I'm going to neglect a wajib which is upon me to go ahead and perform this Hajj. No. Number 4, he should be mustati', meaning possess all the means to perform Hajj without any hindrance. We'll focus more on number 4. First 3 are pretty much easy. So the concept of istata'at in Hajj. What does istata'at mean? Istata'at comes from your ability, strength, physically or financially. Person becomes mustati' on the following conditions. One might be missing from it. Okay, so enough wealth to pay for the traveling. As we were discussing before our workshop began, how much does it cost to perform Hajj this year? A lot. Upwards of $12,000, $13,000, $14,000. And those who have gone for Hajj, in the past 20 years, they'll tell you it never used to be this expensive. Prices should increase relative to the economy, but this is outrageous. I remember first Hajj that I did in 2010, it cost us $5,200. Anyone else went to Hajj before that? When did you go? 2001. 2001, how much did it cost? $1,700. All right. Anyone else did Hajj before that? 4,200. Okay. Yeah, you meant, I think, 2006 or 5, right? Yeah, so it used to be a lot cheaper, affordable, even it's getting out of hand. And I was talking to some friends in Pakistan, even from there, it's the private Hajj is about 15 lakh rupees, 20 lakh rupees, and people are paying to perform it. So enough wealth to pay for the traveling to and from, and as far as your expenses are concerned. So we see that a lot of time people say we don't have that much money. This will go into financial mas'ala. We won't go into the khums details yet. But for Hajj, before you go to Hajj, 2 things have to be understood. Taqleed, that you follow a marja, that you announce that I follow the masail of Ayatollah Sistani, Ayatollah Khamenei, Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi, Ayatollah Zanjani, Ayatollah Ishaq Fayyad, Ayatollah Bashir Najfi, or the other maraji, Ayatollah Wahid Khurasani, all the other maraji that are alive right now. You got to declare that. Why? Because you'll be following the masala of one of these when you go there. And you might get away with the other ibadat and say, well, I don't need to follow anyone. I know how to pray. Sure, but do you know how to do Hajj? You're going to be referring to someone. All you're doing is referring to someone who is more knowledgeable than you. And there's no shame in referring to an alim who's of that caliber. Who's done what? Done the hard work, reading this Quran and this Surah Hajj, riwayat of Ma'asumin, deducing all the laws, putting it in a simple form in front of you so that you can go ahead and perform Hajj. So therefore, you need to make that niyat that I follow so and so. Second thing is your finances. Khums should be up to date. If you haven't paid khums, your Hajj, the money that you're using to go to Hajj, is problematic. So you can't just go out and go to Hajj if you haven't cleared your debts as far as khums is concerned. So a lot of time people say, well, we've never paid khums. Then you can speak to the marja or his representative, work out a plan so you can pay khums at a later date, and now it'll be okay for you to go ahead and perform the Hajj. But understanding, hopefully, that people already are doing taqleed, inshallah, and they're already are up to date as far as their khums is concerned. Sometimes people say, well, we don't have money, we pay khums, but we can take money out of our retirement fund, for example. You know, how much does it cost? I remember a few years ago when it was, within the means, like $7,000, $8,000. A couple said, we want to go and we can take out that much money from our retirement fund. Yeah, of course, there'll be penalties, this and that, but so what? We're going to get to use it. What if we don't live that long to be retired and then that money is gone and we don't get to perform Hajj, nor do we get to use that money that is waiting? So I said, well, if you want to take the money out, make sure you take enough money out so that you can pay khums on it. Because the retirement fund is what? It's savings. What's obligatory on savings? Khums. So if until it becomes liquid, there's no khums on it. But the moment you touch it and you take it out, it's now in the liquid form in your hands, you have to pay khums on it, or it should be paid until the end of the year. So it said take enough money out so that you can pay the khums on it and at the same time go to Hajj. So for example, if $8,000 is how much it costs to go to Hajj, take $10,000 out, so you can pay $2,000 as the khums. Side note. Number 2, healthy and strong enough to perform Hajj. You can't rely on someone else to be dragging you around for Hajj. Although you have the wheelchairs available, but wheelchairs will only take you, for example, as far as the tawaf is concerned, as far as the sa'i is concerned. What are you going to do in Arafat, Muzdalifah, and Mina? Those places becomes very, very difficult, especially in these months. Now when the temperatures are scorching in the triple digits, and it's very difficult. Even younger, healthier people find it difficult, let alone people who are of old age. But unfortunately, people delay going when they're young, and they make this trip when they are old. Majority of the people that have been going for the last 10 years that I have the opportunity in the last 10 years, since 2010, 12 years, shouldn't be saying 10. I've seen majority of our group comprised of older people. Older in a sense that, they were above 60. I'm saying old, they're not old if they're over 60, but at least, they're towards retirement or 65 or 70. You would find random, younger people, younger couples in their 20s, in their 30s, but majority, and that's the case when it comes to overall people who have come for Hajj. You see, majority of the people that are performing Hajj, those millions of people, usually it goes up to 2 to 3 millions. Majority of them are older. No obstacles like fear of losing property, honor, roads being sealed. So you can't go to Hajj because you can't get the visa, or Saudi Arabia has banned visa on your country. So now that has to be open. That has to be cleared in order for you to go. Enough time to go to Makkah and perform the wajibat. So it's not like you're leaving a day before. You're not going to be able to make it. In fact, you can leave a day before because, as far as I remember, they close the airports as well in the first 5 days of the month of Dhul Hijj. So you can't even travel by air. Enough money left with dependents to enable them to continue their lives when you're gone. In your absence, your family members should have enough to survive. But if you take everything with you and they're going to be tawakkul ala Allah, no, you can't go. I mean, you can go, but it's not obligatory on you. Means for earning the livelihood is safe once you return. So it's not like you're leaving your job and like, whatever, they fire me, fine. And when you come back, you don't have any job. No. Make sure that you have time off, you have vacation, enough time to. So all this is for what? Make it easy for you. Allah does not want to make this great obligation to be a matter of difficulty for you. Sometimes you only hear about physically well-being and financially. No, all these are the details. That your honor should remain intact, that your family should have enough money, that you should be able to come back and have enough to survive. And all of those to go into the concept of istita'at and mustati. All right. So moving along, as I said, Hajj Tamattu, 2 parts. Umrah Tamattu, so you arrive in Medina. Preferably, that's what we used to do. We used to arrive in Medina, and we spend a few days there, go for the ziyarat of the grave of Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt. And then after that, we'll, usually 5th or 6th of Zil-Hijj, we'll put on the ihram. We'll do the ghusl of ihram. And we'll go to Masjid Shajara. Over there, we'll make the niyat of wearing the ihram. So for example, if this was the ihram and you had it on, you're already wearing it. So you open it a little bit, you make the niyat, and then you put it back on. That'll be your ihram. So wearing ihram at the miqat. So usually when you're coming from Medina, where do you stop? Masjid-e-Shajara. That's where Rasulullah used to stop. Dhul Hulayfiyah is also another name for it. That's where Rasulullah used to stop. And Imam Hassan, when he would go for Hajj from Medina, this is where he used to stop. Stay there. It's mustahab to pray 6 raka'at prayers. We used to go at a time when it would be Maghrib time, so that we would had, already have to do a wajib salat. So we'll just go ahead and do that wajib salat, then we don't have to do any other mustahab prayers along with it. But there's plenty of time. You go there, you pray this 2 rakat salat or 6 rakat salat. 2 is also fine, 6 is recommended. You open a little bit of ihram and you put it back on. You make the niyat that I put on the ihram for Umrah Tamattu, Hajjatul Islam, Wajib Qurbatan Ilallah. And then you have to recite what is called talbiyah. Labbaik, Allahumma labbaik. Labbaik, la sharika laka labbaik, innal hamda wal ni'mata laka wal mulk, la sharika laka labbaik. And then of course you go to Makkah, you arrive there, you go ahead and, you usually settle down in the hotel, and then you come out for the Umrah. Because you've been traveling all day and tired, it's not like you have to do it right away. You can delay it. You can take off the ihram, take a shower, put the ihram back on again. You can't change into any of the clothes. You gotta keep the same ihram on, but you can take it off and take shower and then put it back on again. You can sleep in it if you want to. But of course, there are 25 things that will come in the next slide, which become haram onto you, which would be halal in outside of ihram. They become haram onto you that you can't do. So you gotta bear that in mind. So the sooner you perform Umrah, the sooner you can come out of those conditions without having to deal with kaffara. Hajj Tamattu, once you're done with this, Tawaf and 2 rakat salat, Sa'i and Taksir, usually we are there on 6th of Zil-Hijj, 7th of Zil-Hijj. Now we have an extra day with us. So now you can just go to Haram, walk around, even go for the ziyarat of the surrounding areas. There's in Makkah, you have Jannatul Ma'ala or Jannatul Mu'alla, where you have the graves of Hazrat Abu Talib, Bibi Khadija, Hazrat Amina, Hazrat Abdul Muttalib. So of course these family members of Rasulullah. There's other sightseeings in that area, where you can go to. Ghar Hira, you can go there. All those are places, just two historical places, rich history. You can go ahead and perform all that. And then, after spending the 8th day, on the 8th day of Zil-Hijjah, towards the night time, we go ahead and put on the ihram again. From where? Anywhere in Makkah. You can even do it from your hotel. You don't have to go anywhere. But it's recommended to do it between Maqam Ibrahim and Hajar Aswad, around that place. Usually people go there after having done the ghusl in hotel and putting on the ihram. You go there, you make the niyat. Same thing. You open it a little bit, you make the niyat, and you recite the talbiyah, and then you put it back on. And then you move towards wuquf of Arafat. Now that's the first station that you get to. This is where you really feel Hajj is happening. Up until this point, everything was nice. Up until this point, you were staying at the nice hotels, 5-star hotels. This is easy. But this is where reality hits you. Arafat is like Roz Mahshar. It's like the day of resurrection. All you see that in the plains of Arafat, millions of people, all dressed in the same 2 pieces of white clothing. And of course, we have nice tents and everything over there, but still, just seems like it's Roz Mahshar, where everyone will be called and we walking in towards the bargah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's we all be known. Arafat is also that one place on the 9th day of Dhul-Hijj, from Zawal until sunset. This is the wajib portion of wuquf. You can arrive there earlier, but when do you make the niyat? From the Zuhr time on the day of Arafah, 9th. From Zuhr till sunset is the obligatory period of wuquf. That is also, if you want to pinpoint Imam of your time, his location, where would he be? Every year on the 9th of Zul-Hijj, day of Arafah, Imam is in Arafat between that time. Right now we don't know where Imam is. But that's one time that you can pinpoint the location of Imam, that he is definitely in the plains of Arafat. And then after that, after sunset, you move towards Muzdalifah. Of course, all of these guides are provided. They guide you to where to go. Buses are there. You can't miss it. You get into the same bus that has dropped you off in the section that you're staying, and you have the bands on your hands, so you don't really lose any of this, and you stay with it with your group, and they guide you to Muzdalifah. Where it was, at least in Arafat, you had a tent. Some had AC in it. But when you get to Muzdalifah, you're on the ground. There's sky above you, and there's ground beneath you. So if you brought something to sit on, fine. If you didn't, just sit on the ground, and that's it. You spend the night there. There's some ahkam of wuquf for women and elderly. It's not obligatory for them to spend the entire night, because the wajib wuquf in Muzdalifah is from the time of Fajr until the sunrise. That's the wajib part. But we arrive at midnight. Usually we're there. For women and children, they only need to just stay portion of the time at night, and then they can just go to Mina. They don't have to do the wajib portion, and that is enough for them, because it's very difficult. When you really arrive there, you see the place is packed, people and bodies just laying on the ground, and you're just making your way, walking around people so you don't step on anyone, and then you eventually find a corner where you can just sit. That's it. And then what do you got to do over there? You got to collect the pebbles. You collect 70 pebbles. Fresh pebbles, which are the size of 1/3 of your finger, for example. That's the optimum size. You collect 70, although you don't get to use all 70. You get to use only 21, 49. You get to use 49 in 3 days, but you collect 70 in case you drop something, you didn't hit one, you have extra with you. So you do that. The morning you go from Muzdalifah, as the sun rises, you start walking towards Mina, and the first thing that you do on the day of Eid, there's no Eid for you. You're not dressing up for Eid, you're not going for Namaz-e-Eid, there's no Eid al-Adha for you. Instead, you're going to go ahead and strike Jamara Uqba, the big one, the big stone. So you don't have to hit all three, just you hit the big one. And then you come back to your tent, now you stay in Mina. You wait for the Qurbani to take place. Sometimes you do it yourself, sometimes someone does it on your behalf. And once you get the news that Qurbani is done, that's when I really see excitement on the faces of people. The moment they hear the Qurbani is done for them, now they can shave their heads or they can do the Taksir and then come out of this ihram, for example. That's where really we see the joy, because for the past two days, about 48 hours, they've been really dragged, wearing these 2 pieces of clothing, tired, it's dirty. They just want to shower, they want to get out of it, and they finally had that opportunity. So you do halq. If you have done Hajj before, you don't need to shave your head. You can just do halq, or rather taksir. But if it's first time for you, you must remove and shave your head. Number 7, after spending the day, usually we don't leave on the 10th of Zul-Hijj. The 11th of Zul-Hijj, we come out to Mecca and we do tawaf of Hajj or tawaf of Ziyarah. Then of course 2 rakat salat, and then you do sa'i. There's no taksir after that, you've already shaved your head. And then you can either do tawaf al-Nisa right away, or if it's too much crowded, you can delay it to the following day. You don't have to do it right away. And then you come back to Mina, spend a portion of the night. So there are 2 portions of the night. Night begins from Maghrib until midnight, and then from midnight until morning, Fajr. These are the 2 portions of the night. You decide which portion you want to stay. We usually stay the latter one from midnight. We arrive there earlier, but we stay and make the niyat from midnight up until the time of Fajr. Once it sunrises, we go and we hit the shaitan, and then we come back to Mecca to do our Tawaf al-Nisa, and stay in our hotel. And then at night we come back to Mina for the last night, the 13th, night of the 13th of Zulhijjah. Right. Let me just quickly go over the ihram. Let me see the time, how much we're doing time. So I'll try and finish it in 10 minutes. We started about 10 minutes late, so I have about 20 minutes, but I'll try and finish it in 10, 12 minutes. And if there are any questions, I'll take. Or if you have any questions on the way, you're more than welcome to raise your hand. So as I said, Umrah Tamattu, there are 5 things. Ihram, Tawaf, Salat, Sa'i, Taksir. Ihram, for men, 2 white pieces of unstitched clothes. So these shirts that you and I are wearing right now, we can't wear this for ihram. You can buy it over there. You can buy over here. You know, ihram is available. And buy something which is comfortable and light. A lot of people buy, you know, going after some good quality. You're going to be wearing for a day or 2. You don't really need to go for the best quality. The best quality ends up being heavier. You want something which is light, because you'll be carrying this, and you're not in the habit of wearing this. It'll be very difficult for you to constantly swinging your arms to put it over your shoulder, and it starts hurting. The bottom part, I forgot to bring it. I would have shown you how to put it on. It's a lot of people say, well, they were wearing it for the first time. We need to have a belt. You can belt with the intention of keeping the goods, not with the intention of keeping the ihram intact. You say, oh, no, I don't want to make sure that I keep it on. It doesn't fall off. It doesn't fall off. The technique that we put it on. But of course, when you're wearing this without any undergarments, people are afraid that it might fall off and they'll be embarrassed. So they want to have belts and they want to do all that stuff. So 2 white pieces of unstitched clothes. For women, they can wear stitched clothes, of course. And they can dedicate any of their clothes to be ihram. It doesn't have to be specific. They can dedicate any of their clothes to be ihram. It is recommended that it is white, and it is purposely done for that, and you keep those on. As I said, ghusl mustahab before wearing ihram, so you do it from your hotel. Miqat, there's specific miqat. From Medina, it's Masjid Shajara. From Jeddah, it's Juhfa. You have to make the niyat, specify what are you wearing this ihram for. Umrah Tamattu, Hajj Tamattu, Umrah Mufrada. You got to make sure that the intention is correct, seeking nearness to Allah. And right after making the niyat, you recite talbiyah. Immediately after uttering the niyat, you should say labbaik, Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharik. One time is wajib. You continue saying this throughout your journey, but one time saying it properly is obligatory. So there are a couple of things that are very, very critical that has to be done as far as the pronunciation. Because the actions that require physical ability, we will be able to perform it. I mean, walking around the Kaaba, anyone can do that. We say, well, let's go ahead and recite Surah Fatiha. Now, you're making mistakes in reciting Surah Fatiha, that is not going to count. Your wajib salah, you should not be making a mistake either. But, you know, wajib salah does not have other further implications. Hajj, you spend $10,000. And if you can't recite Surah Fatiha properly, then Hajj is at jeopardy. Your salat is not correct. Salat is not correct. Your tawaf is invalid. Tawaf is invalid. Hajj is invalid. These are the 25 things that become prohibited. Some are specific to men. Some are specific to women. Some are, of course, for both. If you look at these towards the right side, bloodletting, tooth extraction, carrying weapons, cutting nails, these are all for both genders. Removing hair, looking in the mirror, ornaments that normally people wear for beautification, killing insects, swearing, lying and boasting and abusing. These are all similar for both. And then there's some specific for the other genders, things that are normally are halal. Some of the things are actually haram even outside of ihram, but majority of these things are halal outside of ihram, but they become haram. So once you've done the ihram comes off. After Hajj Tamattu, when the ihram comes off, all these are removed except, wearing perfumes and relationship. But everything else remains intact. All right. Next part is tawaf. Is tawaf? Tawaf is easy, Maulana. What do you want to talk about tawaf? You just got to walk around. Yeah, even that, people make mistakes. One should make the niyat of tawaf and keep it in mind that tawaf is being done for Umrah Tamattu. Taharat is necessary. For duration of tawaf, you got to make sure that you keep your wudu intact. But if you have difficulty keeping the wudu intact, then it becomes difficult. If during tawaf wudu becomes batil, what should one do? This really depends when it became invalid. So if you had already done 4 rounds, then your wudu became invalid, you have to go out, you have to do wudu, but you can come back and start from number 5, 6, and 7. But if your wudu became invalid before completing tawaf number 4, or round number 4, then you gotta start all over again. So try as much as possible to keep your wudu intact for that. See, the first tawaf that we do for Umrah Tamattu takes about 30 minutes. But when you do tawaf-e-Hajj and the last tawaf al-Nisa, that takes sometime hour, 2 hours. So all the conditions that you have for namaz are true over here. Body and clothes must be tahir, just as in salat. Even the najasat which is exempted in salat, you have blood, which is the size of a coin. If it's less than a coin, your namaz is fine. But in Hajj, no. Even that has to be removed. Male must be circumcised, and private parts should be covered. That's what people are scared of and putting on their belts so that, lest something like that happens. You start from Hajar Aswad and with Hajar Aswad. Do not go inside Hatim, I'll show you the picture, or touch the walls of Kaaba. A lot of time people try and get close because Ahl Sunnah, they don't have this, so they're touching the walls of the Kaaba, they're touching Hajr, Maqam Ibrahim, they're touching Hatim, they're going all over. No, you walk in between Maqam Ibrahim and the wall of Kaaba without touching anything. And you got to make sure that you're walking, you're not just being pushed around, right? Keeping your left shoulder always facing the Kaaba. Hatim is that D, Hajr Ismail basically. So keep the, observe muwalat. Perform 7 rounds sequentially, one after another. You can't just say, well, I'm tired now, I'm going to go sit. And then you stay out of the mataf for like an hour and then you come back in. Someone said, well, were you really doing tawaf? No. You got to make sure that muwalat is kept. Of course, sequence, you can't really do anything else in between. So if you look at sketch of the Kaaba, when you're doing tawaf, right here, okay. So if this is Kaaba, you have this Hajar Aswad right here, Rukn Yamani, Rukn Shami, Rukn Iraqi. This is that D that I was referring to called Hatim, Hajar Ismail. The grave of Hazrat Ismail is right here. On top of the Kaaba over here, you have what is called the Shazarwan, where the water drops. This is your Maqam Ibrahim right here. Now it's very close. It's not this close. It's a little bit further back over here. So you start from this imaginary line. In fact, there's this line that goes all the way over here, and you can see that there's actually a green light. Now there's a green light, but there's actually a green light over there as well, which if you were to look at it from far distance, you'll be able to see, oh, this is where it's starting, and then you can make the niyat. So what we used to do is we would enter from our hotel. When we come out, we'll enter from this gate which is facing Rukn Yamani. Or even further back, in between Rukn Shami and Rukn Yamani, there's a gate. You enter from that gate. So you enter from here, and then you start becoming part of the tawaf. And slowly you get into the area which is called mataf, and come close to the Kaaba, but without touching it. And then when you come here, this is where you utter the niyat. I start now with I begin the tawaf of Umrah Tamattu 7 times around Kaaba, wajib qurbatan ilallah. You make the niyat when you get right here. So you started over here, slowly, gradually you make your way in. A lot of people just come right here. They'll come in here, and then they'll start. Don't do that. You're going to be crushing people and going through people and hurting someone. You start, gradually walk in, and then slowly become part of the tawaf, and then start. So 1 round, 2 rounds, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th round, you finish, you go back a little bit like this, and you end right here. And right here, you go ahead and this is right behind Maqam Ibrahim. It doesn't have to be touching Maqam Ibrahim. Anywhere behind Maqam Ibrahim, it could be 100 feet behind Maqam Ibrahim. You stand over here and you offer the 2 rakat salat. The 2 rakat salat, of course, is wajib. And it's recommended to recite Qul Ya Ayyuhal Kafirun as the second surah after Surah Fatiha. And it's important that it's pronounced properly without even making Arabic mistakes as far as the pronunciation is concerned. We usually have a workshop for that when we are there, because if you do a workshop over here for that, people forget. So just before we start that, we work and walk through people as to how to properly recite that surah. All right. So after that was Salat of Tawaf, and then Sa'i. Sa'i, I didn't get into the slides of that, so I'll skip. Sa'i, as I mentioned, just walking between Safa and Marwa. They have expanded it as long as you stay on the main floor. That's what Untitled Chapter says. The entire area is considered to be Sa'i, and you don't have to go. You can't touch the Mount Safa, nor can you touch the Mount Marwa. Not that you cannot, in a sense, Shara'an. They have blocked it off, right? So it's basically sealed behind a glass mirror door. You can't touch it. But back in the day, I remember in 99, 2000 when I went, I actually climbed up onto Safa. So it was open at that time. I climbed up to Safa. I don't know, 2001 mein aap gaye the. Yeah? So it was open. The other time you did that too. But now it's sealed off. So you just walk around like that. Taksir, one important note on Taksir is that you can do someone else's Taksir before you've done yours. A lot of people start cutting others' hair. Doesn't count. You got to make sure you've done your Taksir first before you do someone else's. What does that remind you? Put your mask on first before you put someone else's mask on the airplane. So you got to be able to do your own Taksir. Once you have come out of Ihram, then you go ahead and clip someone else's hair. So this is Umrah Tamattu. After this, Hajj Tamattu begins. In Hajj Tamattu, we went over all of the ahkamat, staying in Mina, striking the shaitan. As far as the shaitan, the wall that is now represents shaitan, back before 2000, it used to be just one big pillar. Maybe the length of, I don't know, a meter or two each side. That's how big it used to be. So meaning a lot of people were hitting from this side. On the other side, there are people hitting from that side. They might be hitting each other as well. That's how it was. You can see the pictures. But now it's about a 60-foot wide wall. This is a wall, 60 feet. It's huge. So Ayatollah Sistani says, make sure that you hit in the middle and from the ground floor. There are first level, second level, third level. And then it's 60 feet wide. What was the original? That which is on the ground floor and that which was in the middle. They start expanding left and right. And then they start expanding it, on the first, second, and third floor. Ayatollah Khamenei allows it if you go on the first floor and do it, or even the other floors. So a lot of his followers, because there's more rush and there's more crowd on the ground floor. That's where you'll find maximum people. But of course, when we take people, we show them the technique of doing it without getting hurt, without missing out on the place. I've always had the opportunity to go and stand right in the beginning where I put my stones down on that ledge and then hit shaitan, which will be only 10 feet away from you. It's easy. It sometimes seems because you're walking in and hundreds and thousands of people are walking in with you and your adrenaline is pumping and you're seeing what's going to happen now and you're trying to keep your ihram from falling off and all that stuff. And you're not wearing shoes, proper shoes. You're wearing these chappals, right? The slippers. And someone might step on you and all that stuff. Thoughts going into your mind. You're like, okay, what do I do? Sometimes people lose their stones. So you can borrow it from someone else and they can lend it to you as well. So this is as far as the quick review of Hajj. Of course, you start 6th Imam. There's a riwayat. He says, whoever performs Hajj, فَلْيَخْتِمْ حَجَّهُ لِزِيَارَتِنَا. Finish your Hajj بِزِيَارَتِنَا, with our ziyarat. Meaning, فَإِنَّهُ تَمَامُ الْحَجْ. Our ziyarat, Ahlul Bayt, their ziyarat is the completion of Hajj. So either before or after the manasik of Hajj, go ahead and do the ziyarat of Ahlul Bayt. So this is the picture of the mosque of Rasulullah. This is where you have the tomb of Rasulullah, and then the two Khulafa, and the house of Bibi Fatima right behind it. We get a lot of time, we would get, when we were in Medina, we would stand over here, and then the salat will begin. I have prayed right here many times. This would be the best place to go ahead and pray, right behind the house of Bibi Fatima Zahra Sallallahu. This is where Rasulullah used to, there's a pillar. These are all the pillars. It's recommended to offer 2 rakat namaz on all these pillars. Rasulullah used to receive the delegations over here. Other pillars are also pillar of Tawbah. It's very difficult. It's not easy because this place is packed. There is not a time of the day where you'll find this place to be empty. Between the pulpit, mimbar of Rasulullah, and the zari of Rasulullah, this place is called Riyadul Jannah. This portion is called Riyadul Jannah. Meaning what? Portion of paradise. So that's why it's highly recommended to go ahead and offer 2 rakat namaz. So we used to come in, and from here you can just do the ziyarat and you can just walk out. And from here, when you walk out, you're going towards Jannatul Baqi. When you come out from there, you come towards Jannatul Baqi. This is where you will enter. So if you leave over here, you do the ziyarat of Rasulullah, Maqam Jibreel, and you just walk out of this door and you move forward, you will end up being right here. This is the entrance that you will see in front of you. You come up into this entrance, they're going to make you go through this walkway. You can't go in this side, they're going to make you go through this walkway. Right away you have the graves of the 4 imams, 2nd imam, 4th imam, 5th imam, and 6th imam, along with the grave of Fatima bint Asad and Hazrat Abbas, uncle of Rasulullah. Then you have the adopted daughters of Rasulullah. Then you have the wives of Rasulullah. Some of the names are there by mistake. They are not there. And then you have Abdullah ibn Ja'far Tayyar, Aqil ibn Abi Talib, the 2 aunts of Rasulullah, Safiya and Atika, Pupiyan Rasulullah ki, and then Qabr of Ummul Baneen, mother of Hazrat Abbas. All this is in this beginning portion. Usually Shias, they just go to this grave and then they come back. They leave. It's like, what is there out there? Well, there are other graves. Imam Malik's qabr is there, Shafi's qabr is there, martyrs of Uhud are there, Ismail, and the son of Imam Jafar Sadiq, Ismail is there, and the other graves, Uthman ibn Maz'un, his grave used to be right here, Uthman ibn Affan. This is wrong. It should be Uthman ibn Maz'un. I guess this map is not done properly, but this is the grave of Uthman ibn Maz'un, which was the great prophet, great companion of Rasulullah, who was the first one to be buried in this graveyard. All right, this basically concludes our presentation. If there are any questions, I'm more than welcome to take them. I know we don't have any interaction with our online audiences, but nonetheless, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to.
Like they have restriction 65 years of age, and if somebody do the niyyah that he wanted to do Hajj this year, will Allah accept that he has done the Hajj?
No, you won't unless you go and do it. It's not done.
But he wants to go, but they are not allowing him to go.
Well, I mean, how do I explain this? You have a qarz of $1,000, and you went to pay the qarz, and someone robbed you, right, of the $1,000. You say, well, I had the intention to pay you off. Are you still in debt or you're not? According to that person, you're still in debt because the money that you lost, you had all the intentions to pay. You had the intention to go, but it's not. So it's not obligatory upon you. That goes into the istita'at. It's not wajib. You're not mustati'. Meaning it's not obligatory. It's not wajib because they're banning you from going. They have put the age limit. But you still have to go ahead and do the following year. Good.
Maulana, I saw on the map of the Gawa there was
So Hajar Aswad is Hajar Aswad. So you have Rukn Yamani, which is facing the direction of Yemen. Rukn Iraqi, which is facing the direction of Iraq. And what was the other one? Rukn Shami, it was facing the direction of Sham. Yep. So yeah. These are the four corners. It's easy because of these Rukn Shami facing Sham, Rukn Yamani facing Yemen, Rukn Iraqi facing Iraq, and Hajar Aswad. So these are the four corners. Of course, Rukn Yamani is where it is mentioned that Janab Fatima bint Asad, mother of Imam Ali, she entered from that place. And that split open. She entered into Kaaba from that direction. And then she came out after 3 days. So that's the importance of that. You see people flogged, right? Around Rukn Yamani and Hajar Aswad. Same way, you see a lot of people in these two places. Other two corners, nobody really goes to those two corners. These are the two corners which are packed with people trying to touch them. So I have these, nice forms that are available. If anyone needs them, this is a good, you can print them out. It's an easy, cards that are created going one by one. So you have Umrah Tamattu, and then you have Tawaf Kaaba, you have Salat Tawaf, you have Sa'i, you have Taksir, and it goes in the order like that. You have the Mina and stoning of Shaitan and Ziyarat of Ma'asumin. Right here, I skipped one. You have Taksir, Tawaf, Salat. So all the actions put into this one note card, easy to carry, simple English, simple way to understand, without going into the extra details. All right, we'll stop over here, and I guess can't really interact with the people online, although I do see. Can someone share who our assistant? Okay. All right. Well, I thank you all for coming and taking part. And inshallah, if there are any questions, inshallah, we'll address them at your convenience. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma.